Hey, welcome back to the channel. My name is Eric, and first of all, Happy New Year to all you guys. I hope all your dreams and your wishes come true for 2024. But I had time over the Christmas break to kind of go out and see what other people were doing for videos. And I'll be honest with you, some of them kind of scared me. And the advice that they were giving on how to start and run a small engine repair business. Whether you're doing it on the side or you're a do-it-yourselfer at home and you want to work on your own stuff, or you're geared towards wanting to set up a shop, and start repairing stuff for customers to make money. It all applies, okay? Now, what this video is not going to include is like how to set up your business, your sales tax number, your partnership, sole proprietor, your insurances, permits, making sure that you have the right zoning to where you're going to put a shop, or you're going to lease a property, or you're buying a property. All that has been covered in prior videos that you can just go back and watch. I can leave in the comment section, links back to the videos I'm talking about. This is more about, here we are, January 1st, 2024. What does it take to get into this business or to do this kind of work? What are the tools? What do I need? Let's first start off with the basics, all right? So, one, you have to have the willingness and the aptitude, the ability to learn. That's got to be present. Two, you need to get your hands dirty. If you want to find out how certain things work, tear them apart, put them back together. Find a lawnmower that somebody stuck out front, to have picked up for trash. Grab it, take it home, tear it apart. Third is managing customers, because if you're going to deal with other people's machines, you have to know how to deal with other people's machines. And a good rule of thumb that I like to tell people is to treat people the way you would hope to be treated. We've all heard those horror stories where a shop took in, let's say, a push mower, and a week later the owner gets a bill for $400 to fix a $169 push mower. Do you think that customer is going to be happy? Heck no, he could have bought 2 lawnmowers for what you charged him to fix his old one. And his old one's probably on its last leg anyways, right? So, and the other thing I try to teach people is do not learn on a customer's back. And what do I mean by that? I mean, if you're first starting out, it's going to take you time to streamline it to where you get good at it, all right? And an example, in the carburetor on the MS-170 that I did last week, I showed you how to get a clean working area. And as you take things apart, put your first part as far away as you can and work towards the last part you took off. So you know that these are the steps to put it back together, right? And then you need proper tools. And what do I mean by proper tools? I had one video that I watched that said that having the carburetor wrenches is the most important tool you have. You don't need compression testers. You don't need... I'm like, what? Are you serious? That's what we're going to be doing today. It's whether you're just starting out or you're a do-it-yourselfer and you want to work on your own stuff, we're going to talk about the tools that are must-have and that, make things easier. All right, so stick with us. My name is Eric. going to do the must-have first. The very first thing you must have is a compression tester, okay? And I suggest that you buy it where they have different size tips for different spark plug holes. So you can either buy just a compression tester and then buy the set separately, or you can get a kit to do both. You know, this one here I've got on right now is for a chainsaw. If I wanted to go out and on a V-twin on a Briggs, I got to change this end to a different size spark plug. So you need the different adapters, and all they do is just screw on by hand. Don't over tighten them. They're O-rings, O-ring fittings, so that it seals it. If you put the old torque to it, you're just going to flatten the O-ring and it's not going to work right. So that's your number one must have, is a compression tester. Not carburetor cleaner tools, compression tester. If we don't have compression, we aren't going to have the ability to draw the fuel up from the carburetor into the engine to fire. It will idle, but the minute you go to ask for power, it'll act like the carburetor's quitting on you. If you don't have one of these, you are going to waste a lot of time on stuff that can't be fixed. And that's what I mean, is having the willingness to learn. And this here will save you valuable hours and will save your customer valuable hours on that repair job. Because if you don't do this first, and if you watch the video back on the MS-170, the first one, where I got it to fire and run, but then it quit. We couldn't even get 25 PSI out of it. So an engine will run, but not run right. And my thought when I first saw it, when the customer gave it to me, was carburetor issue, right? That's the first thing most of us think of, is carburetor, starving for fuel. But what did I do first? I did a compression check. And it wasn't starving for fuel because of the carburetor. It was starving for fuel because there wasn't enough compression coming out of that engine to draw the fuel up. So that's a must have. You can get them on Amazon, eBay. I think this one came from Harbor Freight. Napa carries them, you know. So that's a must have. Your second must have is spark testers. And they come in all different flavors, you know. But the main thing I want you to concentrate on is you want one with the boot style and then the straight boot. The L and the straight. Most of your small engines, like your chainsaws, weed eaters, and all that stuff, about the L boot is about the only one you're going to be able to get on it. When you're talking your lawnmower engines and stuff, most of them you can slide just the straight boot on. But if I can stress anything in this video, is in order for an engine to run, it first has to have compression. It secondly has to have fire. Thirdly, the fuel's got to be good in it. And then lastly, is it got air, enough air coming in through the air filter to allow it to fire, okay? And as you start doing this stuff, you're going to find, let's say you're not getting fire through your spark tester. Now that doesn't automatically mean that you have a bad coil. See, I don't want you to be a parts replacer. I want you to learn the right way. And when it comes to no fire, the first thing I check is to see if I've got the correct gap on my coil up against the flywheel of that engine. The second thing I check is on the pickup, on the flywheel. Is it clean or is it rusted? And the same thing on the coil itself. Sometimes just taking a little emery cloth and cleaning it up will automatically make it fire. And the coil was fine, it just didn't have the correct gap, or it had rusted up so it wasn't getting good contact. So if you go out and you buy another coil and you don't clean up the contact on that flywheel, you're going to have the same issue. But as I tell people, with time you gain experience, with experience you gain wisdom of the right way to do it. And the key is learning how to do it the right way, but also make it your way, okay? So wire is second. Now I would recommend, from this point on, I would recommend simply getting a good screwdriver set that has both Phillips and straight, different sizes. Because on some of the carburetors that you're going to be tearing apart, let's say on the MS-170, you need a real small Phillips, okay, to take it apart. And other stuff, you need bigger Phillips or straight. So, and I think you can get that for under 20 bucks, that kit there. The other thing that is nice to have, and that you will find very handy, is getting sockets, okay? Now, you could take and buy through Harbor Freight, Tractor Supply, Walmart, Amazon, eBay, kits that carry the 1/2 inch, 3/8, and 1/4 inch drive all within the one set. And that would be perfect, right? But make sure that you have both metric and SAE, because the majority of stuff, nuts and bolts and everything on your steels, your weed eaters, you know, what have you, are metric. Most of the small engine stuff out today is metric. So I probably use the metric side more than I do the SAE. And if you watch very many of my videos, this is my go-to set. You know, I've got this, and then I got the set of metric sockets as well that I can put onto here. But when it comes to carburetors and tearing stuff apart, this is my go-to lady. Alright, so a good set of 1/2 inch, 3/8, and 1/4 inch drive. Next is make sure you have deep wells. And when I say deep wells, this is out of my Craftsman set, because I wanted a set of spark plug deep well sockets because of the different size spark plugs that I was encountering. So I bought this set, I think off a seller on eBay that was selling Craftsman tools. They had a set for that. And I would also recommend that you get a deep well set in the 1/2 inch and 3/8 inch drive as well. This set here already has the deep well and the shallow well with it. Okay, so now we got the sockets, and depending upon what you're doing, you know, if you're working on lawnmowers, then what I also recommend is having a air compressor of some kind in your shop. Now, if you're starting out, you can get by with just a simple pancake compressor. It's like a 5 gallon. But I would recommend that you at least get the 30 gallons so you got volume, because you're going to need air tools, which we use these a lot, the blowguns. Like when it comes to decks, cleaning off decks. This here, you can blow it all off to get down to, so you can check pulleys, belts, anywhere, any holes in the deck, you know, anything loose. You first have to get your work area clean before you can start working on it, right? So this one works good for the lawnmowers, and this one works good for the chainsaw carburetors and that stuff. It's handy, it's in your hand. So a good compressor, 30 gallon, will suit you. And then I also recommend having a battery charger. Now this one here is basically just a trickle charger. You know, it's not going to put out a lot. And if you're just starting out and you take the battery out and throw it on trickle charge, you know, it's fine. Here at the shop, I recommend that you get the upright. Ours goes up to 300 cranking amp for boost, and we also have, I don't have it in here, but it's not a must-have, it's a nice to have, is a jump pack. And we've got one in each one of the trucks. We've got 3 of them. And it's really handy when you're doing pickup and drop-offs, because you get to a customer's machine and the battery's dead. You can walk back to the truck, grab the jump pack, put it right on the battery, start it up, and get it on the trailer. So you can get it back to the shop to do the work. A set of awls. They're really handy for like O-rings and popping gaskets out on carburetors. And you can get the set of 5 of them for under a couple bucks. You know, they're nice to have. I like a good set of torch cleaners, the tips, and I don't want them for the torches. I want them so that on a lot of your carburetors you have an air tube that gets plugged up, and a lot of times if you can just take and run that, you know, torch cleaner down in that hole, it'll solve a lot of your problems. Whereas in your kits that you get, this one here I think I got off Amazon. The kits that you get, you have this style, you know, it doesn't go small enough to go into that hole to control how much air is coming into that carburetor. So, and that's really inexpensive. You know, a set of punches, they come in handy. One of the most neglected thing on a lawnmower is the battery. Nobody ever looks at it. And if you have corroding corrosion on that battery, the first thing you need to do is get it cleaned up. And you can either use a tool like this that you can put right over top of the positive or the negative, because they're different sizes. And you can remount the terminal end, the battery terminal, that's coming from the lawnmower back. See, the big thing is if you don't keep it clean, here's 2 things that it won't do for you. One is it can't charge because it's not getting good contact, and you're not getting full use of it when you start your lawnmower because you haven't got good contact to give you everything that's in that 12-volt battery. So at least once a year, take the post off. I mean, Claude uses his jackknife. He goes right around the inside of the battery terminal, cleans up around the posts, puts them back on, and that way we can check to see, is the lawnmower charging the battery. And then we can also test the battery after we've had it on a trickle charge for a while. Is the battery going to hold up and stay up? So that's a must have. That's one of the things you need to have and be aware of where you can work on it. Allen wrenches, metric and SAE, they're handy. You can buy those at Harbor Freight for not a lot of money. Now, these are probably the 3 biggest things that I use when it comes to pliers. Now, I like the needle nose vice grips so I can hold on, shut the fuel off if they don't have a shut off in place. You can also get the bigger sizes, but you're asking me what I use a lot, and it's this size and this size for the needle nose, especially working on carburetors, getting the springs back into place, hooking things up. They come in real handy, and they're not that expensive. You want something that you could change the oil with, get the oil filter off. And I use this style. We've got this style, and then I think Harbor Freight has them in a case with all the different sizes. You can put a 1/2 inch or a 3/8 inch drive on it. We found that they slip where these don't. And I like a good set of T-handles, you know, that for the different torques. I can interchange it with this, and then I also have a set that's not out here that I can use on a drill to take stuff apart with. Alright. Now comes your carburetor adjustment tools. are they a must-have? Not necessarily. I mean, if you're going to be doing carburetors, they have to be serviceable carburetors. And what do I mean by, what's the difference between a serviceable and a non-serviceable? Most of them are coming through now are non-serviceable. They've got the hole drilled 3/4 of the way, but not all the way through, and have a jet in there. These all come preset internal. You can't adjust the high and low jet in them. Those are non-serviceable carburetors. All you can do when you get into that is take it apart, check the diaphragm, check the gaskets, make sure everything looks good and works good and is functional. Carburetor cleaner is a must. And get it all cleaned up and then put it all back together. Now, if you do all that and it still won't run, that's all you can do with that carburetor. Alright? Or you can kit it, and then if it doesn't run, you're done. On a serviceable carburetor, you will have 2 jets, the high and the low, that you can turn in and turn out to adjust it to where you want it. Now, I use my hearing when I'm doing like the chainsaws and weed eaters and stuff on the serviceable ones. I know where it sounds just about the best. You can at Harbor Freight buy an RPM testing to let you know when it gets to a certain RPM on that engine. Must have? No. But, if you like to do that kind of stuff, that's handy. So, the tools are good if you're working on serviceable carburetors. You got the Half Moons, the different ones. Amazon, I think, is where I got these. PV Blaster is another nice one to have in the shop. Now, the less but handy to have is some form of multimeter. We use this to check ohms, to see if there's any resistance, to see if you got, good flow all the way around the wire circuit. See what it's reading and then running the specs. A grinder. But I can't stress enough that you wear heavy protective equipment. These will shatter. A friend of mine just up the road was trying to sharpen his blades on his brush hog, and he was using the grinder part. This is the cutter wheel on this one, but it ended up shattering, and it got his arm. He had a t-shirt on, and he never thought that could happen, but split second, any accident can happen. All right. And while we're talking about that, part of the must-have in your shop is safety equipment. Make sure you have a good set of safety glasses. I recommend the hard-toe boot. We used to call them steel-toed, but like at Walmart, you can get them in their plastic, polyurethane or something. They'll provide some protection if something drops, okay? And the other must-have, fire extinguisher. And you want to check it often to make sure it's still in the green. This is still in the green. And you need to know how to use it and which one to get, because they come in like the ABC, but this will tell you how to put it out. And this here is for grease, electrical, liquids, gas. So you want to make sure you have the right one. And they're around $40 at Walmart, but it's better than burning the shop down. And if you think nothing catches fire, you watch. When you're using the welder, cutting torches, grinder, you will create fire. It's inevitable. You're going to want to have grease, because when it comes to servicing a lawnmower, you have grease fittings not only on the deck usually, but you also have it on the steering spindles in the front. So you're going to want grease and a grease gun so that you can grease that piece of equipment. And I recommend a couple times a year for you guys that have, or homeowners that have this. If you're going to get into tearing engines and stuff like that, then you're going to need a torque wrench. And you can get a digital, you can get a manual. This is 1/2 inch, you can get 3/8. And simply with this one here, you set it to the torque pounds that the specs say it needs. And then when you turn it, when you hear it click, you've got to that torque pound so that you're not putting too much torque or not enough torque. You do very much, and you're going to run into where you need snap rings. And this kit here is Pittsburgh, and it comes with 2 different awls in it, so you don't need to buy those. You got them coming right with this kit. Okay, so you know from previous videos, I don't have any sponsorship, okay? I tend to go with the least expensive, but can still do the job. You don't need Snap-on to be a mechanic. You have to be a mechanic first and then use the tools, the right tools, to get the job done. So this is what I would recommend to you. Now, when it comes to DeWalt, I've fallen in love with the DeWalts, okay? The 20 volt. And it's because we beat the crap out of it. I mean, seriously, we do not take good care of these DeWalt tools. But anytime I want to use them, they're ready to go. And this one we had to replace. And the only reason we had to replace it is Claude had left the other one on the fender of a tractor. And unbeknownst to both of us, I guess it fell from the fender and landed in a 5-gallon bucket of hydraulic fluid and was there overnight. And we found it when we went and put the hydraulic fluid back into the tractor. And we let this drain out of all the hydraulic fluid. Then we washed it up with carburetor cleaner and it still worked, but it started throwing sparks. So I said, nah, that ain't happening. So that was our fault. It wasn't the tool's fault. The tool didn't stop functioning because of the way it was built. It stopped functioning because it just got dunked in hydraulic fluid overnight. So I ended up buying another one. This one here, I think, was around $200 without the battery. You can get the DeWalt 20 volt kits that have like your drill, and there's the impact, a couple other things in the kits. And then you have the 2 different size batteries. That's the deep cell, and then you have just a regular one. But if you're going to invest in something, I recommend the DeWalt 20 volt system. It's been really good for us. So that's about all I have for you. You know, what I want you to walk away with is you don't need a lot of money to get started. When it comes to must-have tools, is under 50 bucks. And then you add in the socket sets and some of the extras here, now you're up to 100 bucks. Now when you start buying tools like these, yeah, it's going to get more expensive. But to get in, I want you to first go with the 4 things that requires an engine to start. Compression, and the compression, it will run at 80. It'll run less than that, but as far as running and revving up, you know, 80, she's tired. I look for 90 and above, okay? If I've got 90 and above, then I go to spark. And then if I don't have spark, is it because the flywheel contact, the pickup part is rusted up from sitting? Is the coil rusted up? Are the wires attached to the coil perfectly? And if I still don't have fire, then I'll go buy a coil. But there's a lot of things you can do before that, and that's with a feeler gauge to make sure you're the right clearance between the flywheel and the coil before you bolt it down. What I tell everybody when they're in this business is if you don't know where the fuel came from, it's in the piece of equipment. We have just found it easier just to dump it. I don't care if somebody just said they added just fresh fuel, premium fuel to it. I'm dumping it before I work on it because I want to know what's in that fuel. I want to know that it's the right mixture and that it's the premium non-ethanol. That's just me. You know, for you it may be a little different, but that's. And then lastly, you're going to need air. You know, so you check the air cleaner to make sure it's not plugged up with oil, fuel, because it will. If that's not got a nice, clean, breathable air, or if it's partially plugged, it will act like a choke and it will flood it versus letting it rev right up and run smoothly. So those are the 4 things that an engine has to have in order to run, right? You figure out from these tools which ones you want to start with, but I would start with those. At least a 3/8 drive with a spark plug, different sizes. I would buy a set with 1/2 inch, 3/8 and 1/4 inch to make sure you get the shallow and the deep well, 6-point, 12-point. Screwdrivers. You know, PB blaster, carburetor cleaner, and grease, and a grease gun you're going to use quite a bit. And then you can graduate to these tools that you don't need to have to get the job done, but they make it so much easier, right? And when you have drill, I'm talking drill bits too. And we have a drill press out there that isn't a must-have, but as you go, take some of the money from the money you're making on working on stuff and put it back into tools that will make your life easier. And the key is never learn on the backs of another customer. All right, customer service is number 1. If you're going to be dealing with the public and working on somebody else's stuff, then you need to have great customer service. And the best thing I can give you for advice is to treat all your customers the way you would hope to be treated in that same situation. And that is with honesty. The sad thing is in this industry, and with a lot more businesses than what it used to be, aren't following that same line of logic that the top thing should be that you're honest and trustworthy. Those are the 2 big things. And most customers will find it refreshing. And I will not put a dime more into my customer's machine than I would if it was my own. If I start looking at a parts thing on and the labor and it's climbing up to about half of what a new one is, then customer and I are going to have a talk. How far do you want to go? We can get this one running, but for half again, you're going to be in a brand new one with a warranty, right? It's sad. It's a throwaway generation, right? But just treat people the way you would hope to be treated. You can get in, whether you're a do-it-yourselfer or doing it on the side nights and weekends or starting a shop. That's the must-have. These are handy to have, and these are expensive, but they make your life so much easier. When it comes to torches and welders, we also had that here at the shop. A good oxygen acetylene, but it's not a must-have, but it makes life easier for you on stuff that were the nuts. You know, by heating them up, you can pop them out because it makes them swell. To cutting them off if you have to cut them off, you know. And welder, I have both AC, DC out there. I have both wire feed and I have the stick, depending on what we're working on. If we're working on rebuilding a deck, patching a deck, I like the wire feed. I have a plasma cutter that we use here a lot on the decks for cutting out bad pieces and then welding in some good pieces. But the biggest thing I want you to walk away with is the only thing stopping you from doing this a lot of times is fear. You got to overcome that fear and just jump in. On that note, I hope you guys have had a happy new year and enjoy. Thanks so much for watching. If any of this has been helpful for you or useful, if you could like, subscribe, and share, it would be great for the channel. It would help us out. And the only dumb question to ask in the comments is one that you don't ask. So if you're not sure, even if you think it's a dumb question, ask it. Because I guarantee if you're thinking that, there's probably 20 or 30 other people that are thinking the same thing that don't know the answer. And I can tell you right now, I don't know all the answers. But there's enough good mechanics on this channel that will catch you in the comments that will help you do it the right way. And then the other thing that I recommend once you start getting going is to become partners with the other shops that are in your area. And you're like, well, why would you want to be partners with your competitor? Well, because I'm not trying to take his customers, he's not trying to take my customers, and I just find it a lot better that we get along with just each other. If I got a part here and they don't have it and they got a customer that needs to get it out, then either they'll run over here and grab it and get that customer going, and vice versa if they have it and I need it, you know. And then the other thing is passing knowledge. Is you can't know everything, but if you got a good enough network or teamwork of where mechanics can freely talk to other mechanics from different shops to ask how to do something because they've never seen it before, good chances are, what do the other mechanics have? And I've had mechanics from other shops come over after they got done their shift and help out Claude out here working on something. And I've had Claude on a Saturday go out to somebody else's shop and show them how to do something that they've never encountered before. So having a good working relationship with the other shops in the area, I think, is a plus. And they will feed you work if they're overflow. Instead of them turning it away, they say, well, Eric's got some openings, check with Eric. Because Eric is talking with all the other ones, saying, you know, we're slowing down here. If you need any help, we'll help pick it up for you and get it out the door. The other thing is know your limitations. Now, we're a warranty shop for just about everything out there. But the one thing that we do not do is we do not get into the electrical part of like generators. But I have key people in place that do. And Bernie is my right-hand man. He's got his own business, and all they do is the electrical side of generators and of electric motors for farmers and stuff. He will send me a generator if he can't get it to run for the motor side. And I will send him a generator if I got the motor side running, but I can't get power coming out through the electrical. And that's checking the fuses and a couple other things, but Bernie ends up doing that. So know your limitations, and if it's something that you don't know how to do or aren't willing to learn how to do, then you need to have keep people in place that you can tell your customer, look, I got the engine running fine, we're not getting power over here to your generator side, and I'm sending it over to Bernie to have him do it, to have him do the checks. He could find something in 15 minutes that Claude could spend 3 hours on and never figure it out, all right? Again, that goes to experience. So become friends with the other shops and the other mechanics and exchange freely that information so that it helps everybody. And give back to your community. That's probably the biggest thing, you know, is if you help the community will help you when you need it. So on that note, you guys have a great New Year's, and we'll see you here tomorrow.